That's it. Okay, good evening everyone. It's the October meeting of the Western Creek Community Council. We're also going to have our annual general meeting proceedings after. So we'll move on with our guest speakers first. Naughty, I better acknowledge with the country, shouldn't I? Always forget that one. So we're honoured to be meeting on the ancestral lands of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We acknowledge these first Australians as the traditional custodians of this land, whose cultures are among the oldest living in human history. We pay respect to the elders of the communities in the Murrumbidgee region and extend our recognition to their descendants, past, present and future. Now, tonight we do something a bit different. There's an assembly inquiry going on into dangerous driving. Are we going to get in trouble for saying anything in front of you, Marissa? So we can let Rick. Marissa's on the other side of the table. And we've invited Tom McLuckie. You might have seen ACT now for Safe Roads. I made contact with Tom a couple of months ago, done coffee, talked a few times, and his story is a good Australian bloke trying to get ahead and caught up in catastrophe. And anybody who hears it and goes through it goes, oh my God. And you've also got to go back to having a man like him too. We need to have regard to that. So I thought Tom would be good to come along. There's not too many people here tonight. I hope there'll be more on video and hopefully over the next month people will watch. But I'd like Tom to talk to us about his experience with the ACT dangerous driving hierarchy. And then I've got Mark Boast, who's going to use a few words. He's, as well as being a committee member, he's also chair of the Motorcycle Riders Association. And then I thought I would talk at the end, so don't get bored by me all the time, about the Western Creek Community Council submission, which we developed from the feedback we've been getting, and we've been getting since 2015, so we're certainly not new to the space. So, over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Ben. Can everyone actually hear me? Because I've got a fairly loud voice. Hear me? Yeah. Oh, right, let me take it. Okay. Sorry. I won't actually, I'm an ex-Microsoft employee, I need PowerPoint, so I won't read through all the points here, but I'll probably talk to the important ones. My son died in a alcohol incident. It was an accident on the 19th of May this year. He worked at the airport part-time and was coming back home from his work about 10 to 11 on the 19th of May and was met head-on by a stolen car. Driving alongside a high-marsh drive and driving at excessive speed. By all accounts, the natural impact of the collision could be heard in good friends who live in Mugger Lane here from their house. It was like an explosion. Unfortunately, even though the services got there fairly quickly afterwards, he passed away near Lurch at that moment. Now, I suppose the impact on the family, it's a lived experience that I think until you've gone through it, and it's hard to even imagine. I've gone through it. The driving force is if we can do anything that makes it not happen to us, not happen to any other person ever again. And that's highly unlikely currently, but that's pretty much the driving force of what we're doing. We Boast, Matthew wasn't home that morning. His dinner from the night before was still in the fridge. I phoned him, I texted his mother, went for a shower. And then I heard my wife let out a scream as Matthew's mother and my ex-wife came to the door with the police. All I heard was, he's dead, he's dead. The first couple, anyone who's lost a partner, a loved one, a child, it's the first couple of weeks I was in a kind of cloud. So I don't know how to go through organising the funeral, get to speak to their families, getting two of my sisters over from Scotland. In our tradition, we have an open coffin, go to the coroner's office to see your loved one dead, who's still intubated. It's incredibly difficult. So, there's not much more to say about every time. So the background of the campaign, I suppose, for me, was driven by the very initial discussion I had with the police, and once the circumstances became clear, to me, every day of the week, what happened to Mav was if it wasn't murder, it was definitely manslaughter, and there was a shake of the head, and they're going to never an ACT where you got manslaughter charge for a culpable driving charge. They're like, okay, well, it's not manslaughter or culpable driving, but then the negotiating with the DPP, they'll get it down from aggravated down to just culpable, and then don't expect anything from sentencing. So that's pretty much what drove the campaign. And I did draft 3 petitions. First petition was looking at tougher sentencing guidelines. I was very careful in those words. It's a sentencing guideline. It's not like Sky's Law in New South Wales, which is minimum mandatory sentencing. In order to address some of the criminality we have around motor vehicle crime. Third petition was looking at the judicial approach to sentencing and bail, which I believe is flawed. My Lord Attorney General disagrees with me, but I'll be honest, I'm a bit OCD, so I've come from a data background, so I've gone through every single sentence. I have read every single judgment in the Supreme Court in the last 12 months. I've gone through every single motor vehicle culpable driving causing death offence in the last 10 years. I've done it for those causing grievous bodily harm. I've gone through a lot of the Transport Safety and Offences Act as well. So from my experience and from my own studies, I'd say there is a problem in sentencing. Another one was around the appointment process. Again, I'll probably agree to disagree with our Chief Minister. He's advised he's against US-style appointment of judicial officers. I actually believe we have that currently, and it's an executive appointment where judicial officers here in the ACT. I have a friend who was a magistrate who's basically advised me that they think it's been stacked for years. We won't go on record on that, because obviously they're still part of the Bar Association. But for me, we actually do, that's my view, we have a US influence judicial appointment process, and it's not totally independent. So, now then being with Shane and Chris, I then did receive a couple of letters, and they were very sympathetic, asked for condolences, but the basic premise from them was it wasn't a problem. But if there was minor problems. We're going to get JACS, Justice and Community Safety Directorate, to do an internal review and compare with New South Wales legislation. And then I do feel it was all in the press, there was an announcement made around that we can't make knee-jerk reactions to these kind of changes. There's not a systemic problem, and they were all individual or isolated incidents. I don't believe that's the case. There's a big announcement around the DASL, and that's the drug and alcohol sentencing list here in the ACT, that it's treated with recidivism. If you actually read the full report, there was 8 successful candidates going through that programme with 106 attendees. What wasn't early was 23 or 46 measured, actually committed more offences. So I understand there's some good points from it, but the selection criteria for the DASL needs to be looked at, because if the more violent crime types are then the ones that go on to re-offend more, we've got a problem. And basically Bar Association, the Law Society are in the inquiry today, the Hillside Outcome. They've advised me as a victim and my family as a victim and all other victims, we have nothing to worry about because there's an appeal process. The appeal process in the ACT, the rights for that, according to the Human Rights Act, is all in favour of the perpetrator or defender. There is no rights for myself or Andrew Corney, Cleo, Chief Jago, or any other family to appeal a sentence that's given that the DPP won't pursue. So I wasn't happy with the responses and I went on the campaign. So again, the position I think in the last game is covered the press. I'll have to get to press announcements. We've been told we're not linking to jurisdiction. I think there are some new estimates where the loading question was asked if the Attorney General had been compared custodial sentences to New South Wales, Victoria and other jurisdictions. And apparently issued more custodial sentences in those jurisdictions as well as Victoria. Breach of bail, again, as I said before in the Hansard, those bail breaches that were reported by the ASD policing through the promise database, they could predominantly be procedural. I don't think that's the case. And the dazzle I've mentioned is it doesn't seem to be working as it should be, and it seems to be only targeted on people who are already in the Supreme Court, not able to mention magistrate score level. And also, there are some policies, and I support these policies, trying to reduce recidivism by 25% by 2025. Absolutely support it, but I think we can look at how we do that. For me, there are systemic problems with sentencing, and I'll talk about that in a second. In the ACT, when someone talks about custodial sentence, in fact it's called the term of imprisonment. And actually it's not just imprisonment, it's a lay person say, well, that's time in prison. Imprisonment under our Sentencing Act actually creates imprisonment, corrections, an intensive corrections order, a fully suspended sentence, and had failed to an alcohol and drug treatment programme. Again, the letter I got from Shane advises no issues really rehabilitation and corrective services. My point on that would be I put an FOI in with corrective services in July the 15th, and I phoned last week to get another 10 days extension to be able to answer the questions I've asked. And they're not hard questions. It's how much are we spending on rehabilitation, how many people are attending, how are you measuring success, and how many people are going through them. So I don't think, if we can't have those answers for government right now, I think we've got a problem. Again, in my own view, I think another resource police force. If you look at the police submission to the inquiry, I mentioned 6,000 or 7,000 more people theft crimes. If you actually look at the Productivity Commission report, which is on an actual percentage of actually solving those crimes, we sit at about 7%. Now, we're the lowest police jurisdiction per 100,000 people in the whole of Australia, and we've got the lowest success rate, particularly around the motor vehicle crimes in the whole of Australia too. And just probably point out, the DPP, yes, they do run through the appeal process, and they did win 68% of those appeals. But Shane John will be very clear to point out that the appeal deals with big ticket issues. So it's the predominant murder cases, the rapes, the sexual assault, and serious domestic violence. So I won't bore you with the Crimes Act, but that's basically our culpable driving laws set there. 29.2 is causing death, 29.3 is aggravated, 29.4 is causing grievous bodily harm. And probably what I think for most people who are terrified of some of the road behaviours is the Road Transport Safety Traffic Management Act. And that covers the reckless driving, aggravated reckless driving, racing and all those activities. Now, I do want to talk about legislation a little bit, so I won't go on about the objects of the Act per sentencing, but I will go on about the 7 purposes. Our Attorney General did allude to them at the Assembly a couple of weeks ago. So there's 7 purposes of sentencing. First one is to ensure offenders are adequately punished. Second one is to prevent crime by deterring the offender from other people. The third one is to protect the community from the offender. And we have D, which seems to be very strongly supported here currently, to promote the rehabilitation of the offender. E is to make the offender accountable for his or her actions. S to denounce that conduct. And then G, this to me is the most important one, is to recognise the harm done to the victim of the crime in the community. I've already discussed the crime sentencing Act 3.2. A sentence of imprisonment are comprised of imprisonment, intensive corrections orders, suspended sentences, drug and alcohol treatment orders. So when you hear custodial sentences, it could be one of those 4. It doesn't necessarily mean time in prison. Now, I've got an example of the Laidlaw case. In every case, you have to read the statement of facts. Laidlaw, unfortunately, had a motor vehicle collision with Sue Solhins on the Commonwealth Avenue Bridge, resulting in Sue's death. We have a Justice Reform District team who tell you he got a sentence of 2.5 years. What actually made up that sentence was 3 months in prison based on time served, and then the rest of the sentence was wholly suspended. So he spent 3 months in prison for that couple driving death. Now, intent for law, so I'll quote here again from the DPP. Our job is to make sure the precedents are correct, and reflect human values. The rehabilitation, while an important factor in sentencing, was only one of the many considerations. That means the other 6 principles of sentencing should be considered. Despite having an appeal process, we've never been appealed against a culpable driving charge in the last 10 years. I have spoken to the other parents, because we're a close band of brothers now. I said to know Gary and John Seeley were not very happy around their sentence for Pete Washner who killed their son. I said to know I'm recording and Camille Jago were not hugely satisfied with there. I think the words they used was manifestly inadequate. But despite that, we've never had an appeal at all, so you might want to refer that back to our ACT Law Society and Bar Association. Never an appeal for a culpable driving charge ever. Our Human Rights Act do point this out. It says that everyone is equal before the law and entitled to equal protection. We're also in that same act entitled to the right to life. So then you then go through the rest of that act, there's a whole bunch of provisions to rights for an offender charged with an offence that say they're entitled to all these fair process. And I have no objection to that. There is no right under that act. We are all equal, like a victim of a crime not appeal a sentence that's manifestly inadequate. So my challenge is now a combination of legislation that defines maximum sentences. I think it's 12 years, 14 years, 16 years, etc. And then with precedents under the law. And the biggest challenge we have is the precedents. So I think the Sammy versus the Queen case is it's got a Chief Justice, a Justice I'm very interested in, there's a Justice Elcom. And this was an appeal against an insurance case where a man with a dodgy knee teed up with his family member to have a pretend car accident and make an insurance claim. Now, Sammy on his appeal, which he lost, got a 4-year sentence and had to serve 6 months in prison. The judgment here, so the sentence of imprisonment is a sentence of the last resort. I agree to that. A fully suspended sentence of imprisonment involves significant leniency. The deterrent effect of fully suspended sentences likewise significantly less than a sentence that involves full-time imprisonment. So in this case, they said we need to have a principle of deterrence apply to the law for an insurance fraud case. The man still did 6 months in jail. You then look at some of the other motor vehicle crimes. I don't really like talking too much about them. So I mentioned Blade Law. That was a suicide incident. The Borden one was actually a released bodily harm case. Again, the custodial sentence is 3 years, but was fully served as an intensive correction order in the group. Washner, who killed John Locke Seary, got 5 years, sounds really severe, but he got the maximum applicable parole period that could be applied, and will be out 2 years, 1 month. Now, if you read the facts of that case, or the statement of facts, it's out of the judgment, and Washner had drank at least 19 alcoholic drinks, was on MDMA when he crashed into the car. He was so drunk and drug affected, he didn't even know he hit the car. And it wasn't his first offence, although the other offences couldn't be referred to because they were in juvenile court. Another thing that wasn't allowed to be mentioned in that case was one of the first responders, somebody in Anuga, who saw that case, later killed himself 4 weeks later, and that actual suicide was not allowed to be reported as part of the case, I guess it prejudiced the outcome. You also have, there's still many, I've got a list that I've shared with quite a few people. 34 months for GBH in the Higgins case, served fully in the Bayesian intensive correction order. Levis case, 2 years, 2 months, turns out he did. This was a man who was mentally unfit to drive, knew he was mentally unfit to drive, a heavy goods vehicle, ran through the Corney family's family car through a medical incident and killed the 4-year-old son. And he served 2 years, 2 months, despite having over 50 previous criminal convictions. So, main point is, when you see some of the facts being bandied about by people from Justice Reform Initiative and other groups, they'll tell you that we are harsh in sentencing and our average sentence time in ACT for driving deaths is 4.6 years. That's not actually the time a person serves in prison. The average time served in prison in ACT is 2 years for a culpable driving death. probably won't bore you with explanation that. But one of the reasons I did ask about the actual how we appoint the judiciary is, again, I didn't advise that it would start when we have left-leaning and leaning judges. I think if you read a year's worth of judgments of the Supreme Court, I think anyone would agree with me. So in the swearing-in ceremony from the Chief Justice, in her first interview with the Canberra Times, she advises that we need to take some of the fear and conceptions of the criminals. I'm not sure who that message was for, if it had been for my son driving home on the 19th of May. But I think that kind of got to do have to fear some of the criminal behaviour. And in her swearing-in ceremony, she says she do everything within her powers to keep people out from an overcrowded prison system. Now, that's confusing for me, because I believe Chief Justice McLuckie was interviewed by the Attorney General as part of her job process. He's advised me there is no overcrowding in our prisons, so I'm not sure why when she was appointed in March, she said there is. Revolving door. You've probably seen a lot of comments from the AFPA. I've certainly commented on my Facebook page. So, first 6 months of the year, I've been 940 bail breaches. Now, they weren't all procedural, I can assure you. And current police data indicate we have the highest rate of recidivism in the country, it's at 83%. The average on Torres Strait recidivism rates in the 90s. Operation Toric started to try to address some of the more deeper crimes we're having in the community. It started in August. And from August 14th to October 22, 90 people have been arrested for serious and reckless criminal offences with over 200 charges made. For motor vehicle offences that I've been tracking, so my access to ACT media site, so the 84 offences I've tracked, 24 they're bail breach. I don't count them twice because you can bail having good behaviour, so I've only mentioned bail I've counted once. And another 19 of those 82 have been breached community orders, parole, suspended sentences, etc. Now, car theft rate, we're pretty close to something in the Northern Territory, way ahead of the rest of the country, 4 or 3 times higher than just over the border in New South Wales. And a challenge with the car theft rate as well, so if you look at the police submission for the driving inquiry, and you look at the productivity commission report on how many people we actually catch for car thefts and other motor vehicle crimes, it's about 7%. So whilst we're saying, Corey's been hugely successful, we literally only catch currently about 7% of those crimes. Rehabilitation. I've had a few social media trolls having a go at me because I think we want to bring back the death penalty and throw people in prison forever. That's actually not the case. For me, that is only going to work if we fund it properly. In meeting with correctional services officers, even on Wednesday, I met with their whole office, and the lady looks after the rehabilitation framework. There's acknowledgement that the rehabilitation places are limited. To get some of the drug and alcohol programs to the 6-month waiting list. There's a catch-22 scenario, sometimes if you're currently an addict, and you have a detox, you can't get in a program, you can't get a detox for 3 months, but the program is available next week. So there's a cycle of inability to actually treat people. A recent case I did share with Marissa, with a young Pete friend there who was able to maintain a habit in the prison. The prison's correctional services say you can never keep them out. I don't think there's a prison in the world that can keep drugs out. There's a way. But she was able to maintain the habit. She was then given a corrections order on a Wednesday. By the weekend was out. First thing she did was contact the drug dealer, and before the end of that next week she was rearrested again. So somewhere the system's not connected. I actually do believe in rehabilitation. We've got to fund it. A commitment made by the government, I think it's still there in the estimates, is for an integration centre. Currently we have a transition centre that has about 15 beds. Population in the Cornicky just now is about 380 people, so we can take about 4% of the prison population and put it through a transition capability. The intended integration centre is very similar to the Danish or the Norwegian model, to have a kind of open style livable capacity where they can actually then transition into society, so they can have a job, they can get transport and get skills, education programs, etc. And that is pretty much it from me. But I'm all about Frank Joe. Any questions?
Lots, Tom, but we might give Mark a go.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a look at words
Yeah.
and put the three together.
No problem.
I feel a bit overawed after that presentation because A, I haven't been directly affected recently by the sort of tragedy that's affected Tom, and I can acknowledge all the work he's put into during what must have been an awful time to actually do a lot of work, which I think is actually on behalf of us. Because one of the dangers, I think, in our road safety approach is that we have a societal issue in that we become used to what happens on our roads, and I believe that contributes to what ended up being a tragedy for Tom's family and for so many other families, whether they be victims or offenders. The societal approach is entirely understandable. We get to the age of 17 or 18 and we get our driving licence, because that's what we do. And we get our licence and we pass the test, we do lots of study and lots of, and then when's the next time anybody sees us to see how our driving is going?
75.
Yeah, it'll be based on age, a doctor's recommendation, or a quiet chat with the policeman who sort of said, I think you need to go and have a look at your licence again. So we don't monitor standards, we just police them at when they get to when something goes wrong, we then do them. I come from an aviation background. And to me, that's a complete anathema. It's the opposite of what you do. The rather gory metaphor people use is holes in the ground aren't survivable most of the time. Therefore, it's all about causes, not consequences. So when I use that rather gory description, there's a hole in the ground. Well, it's all very well, and we've all seen the shows on TV that go into the accident investigation and they do that fabulous reconstruction and all that sort of stuff. It's actually what happened before that counts when you talk about aviation safety, and I'd say that's the approach we should be adopting for driver safety or road safety. How do we stop getting to these holes in the ground, these tragedies, these other things that disturb people, not only those directly involved, but also the emergency services, the medical people. The ripples go far and wide, and it's almost as though we accept that this is a normal part of life. Now, at the federal level and down to all the states and territories, we now have a thing called I call it Towards Zero program, because I don't think we'll ever get towards zero as long as people are in vehicles or motorbikes or moving. You can fall over just walking down the street. So I prefer the term Towards Zero, and the first response I notice from most people is that they don't believe it can be done. I go, well, okay. Back to my aviation hat. I should have a hat here, shouldn't I? A little captain's hat. If Qantas thought like that, they'd be out of business. In this country, we have a company like Qantas and Virgin and others who live and breathe aviation safety, because they know it's not just a matter of their reputation as to whether you fly with them or them because it's safer, but also because the economic consequences are enormous. They lose business, they get insurance claims against them. It's just not worth it. So what do you think back now in our road safety area, what is the cost of an accident like Tom's? What is the real cost? And you add it up, okay, we won't go into family costs, but the police, the ambulance, the medical, the ongoing treatment, the effect it has on people in the denial of their ability to enjoy life to the full that up to that point they'd had and now have to some degree lost. What is the cost? And do we do that cost? And do we take, if we understand that cost, how seriously that down do we take things like road safety? So that's a bit of a preach. Sorry, I've got to mention aviation sort of stuff because that's the reason I'm still here. Yeah, despite fighting fighters and all that sort of stuff, I'm still here. There's a reason for it, and it's not just there, but for the grace of God go I. It actually has to be something that has to be worked on. It doesn't always work. I won't go on too much. I had the the privilege, I think, of representing the Motorcycle Riders Association of the ACT, which is a small group, but we're primarily advocacy, and just behind that, I also am a part of the pedal power advocacy group as well. So I've got a sort of two-wheeled thing going on. Motorbikes and cycles fall into the group of vulnerable road users, or VRUs in the terminology. The current state of affairs on our roads is that the push bikes are basically being bullied off the road, especially the faster roads. So you won't see that many people now in on-road lanes, the ones like going down Adelaide Avenue or down Northbourne Avenue. You'll see white lines on the side, but you won't see as many cyclists as you expect. But you'll see plenty on the off-road lanes, so that's all the cars going around. And there's a reason for that, and it's called perception of safety. So a lot of cyclists think it's just unsafe to go there. They don't want to be martyrs. They don't want to get hurt doing it. So they've got an option, it's a viable option, it's to get onto the parks, and away they go. So Canberra is fantastic, especially in Australia, for lots of paths and providing that viable alternative. Yet we still have cyclists who get hurt riding on the road. Motorbikes and scooters don't have that option. They've got to be on the road. In fact, they get fined if they're on the paths, no matter how attractive they might be in the outer suburbs of Tuggeranong or wherever. You get done, so you've got to be on the road. A difference, yes, a motorbike and a scooter can go at the same speed as the traffic, and it gets used to effect, and it often creates a bad image-wise. A motorbike scooting way in front of the traffic. You think, well, I don't know. Unless you ride a motorbike or a scooter, or have in your youthful past, you probably wouldn't understand why they do that. There's a bit of an understanding thing goes, but as far as the standard for road safety expectation, I put it to you that a vulnerable road user, i.e. the motorbike, scooter, and perhaps the cycle, should be the starting point of our expectation. Not an aberration on the side, a starting point. And when you look at our current roads, with that starting point, our roads in Canberra are getting busier, because we're not constructing that many new roads with space, especially in the inner area of Canberra, which we're trying to densify. A lot of that great volume of traffic is bigger than it used to be. EH holders are actually pretty small vehicles. A Ford Ute is quite a big vehicle, so the vehicles are getting bigger, and we never saw things like B doubles on the road. So the system has changed slowly over the years, and our expectation is that things should still go on as normal. And yet you think, well, actually these are big changes. We should have reviewed that. So my final point is, why would we do this? Do we wait for holes in the ground or tragedies on the road? Or do we get out in front and have a proactive approach? And so the one I ask people to consider is, in taking proactive approaches, take what's called a systems approach. You go, systems? What is a system? Well, a systems approach is where you break down what I call the elephant of road safety. It's a big topic. You can go from left to right, up and down, and it's really hard to stay on topic once you get in there. But a systems approach, like designing a computer or a car or an aeroplane or whatever, breaks things down and then looks at those things, and then it relates it to other parts of the system. That's the systems approach. I think what we've seen with our recent problems on roads is we look at that and think, that's the answer, but we don't loop that answer back to the rest of the system. So societal problems, etc., which we're now approaching, and in the dangerous driving inquiry, I think that's coming out fairly strongly, especially when you look at, if you go through some of the submissions and look at the offender-victim sort of relationship, that sort of stuff. That's time for review. Now, we don't actually have a method of running that system in the ACT. We sort of do it at a federal level, but it doesn't work to the individual driver or rider level. And so I think at some stage we might need to consider, if we want to go towards zero and make that big step, but we also need to make a big step over here in how we approach road safety using a systems approach, and put together all these different elements, relate them to each other, and use qualified people who are independent, who are empowered and reporting to the correct body to to make sure that over time, and it won't happen overnight, nothing like this happen, over time we will get this towards zero path and get rid of these horrible tragedies on the road. So that's my preaching point for the night, and thank you for putting up with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm glad you brought a contribution to what we call the matrix. I'm going to speak on behalf of council. I'm going to the committee tomorrow to speak on behalf of council. And what we did is we took a different approach, which is what is the Western Creek Community Council, the community area, telling us is going on? Do we think dangerous driving is an issue? Now, we went back through the minutes of various meetings we've held, where the police have come, the road safety bureaucrats have come. We went back as far as 2015. Now, I was involved in council then, I don't think Mark was, Michelle, Rosemary might have been. And it's a consistent theme. Dangerous driving, earning, burnouts, road safety, speeding around Coolman Court. Now, we wrote a number of times to various ministers, and I think the 2020 letter from Tom Anderson to Ministers Gentleman and Rattenbury really state our position, and it's on our website. I was actually pretty annoyed reading the responses. I felt we weren't taken seriously. Now, we invited Mr. Gentleman to come here a number of times and talk to us and explain why we don't get police here. Why? Well, the answer is probably somewhere else. Maybe there's not enough police. I don't know. But any number of times we've asked this question. Why isn't there a permanent policing presence or a more visible policing presence in Western Creek? Now, when we did the meeting last Monday, I'm told there was a police presence here on Monday. There hasn't been since. They had a big day out with their sirens. So our commentary is cutting through. It's not consistent. The response is not consistent. Now, we've heard about the policing model. We've been waiting patiently for those extra resources to turn up. They haven't. And we keep on hearing those our tyres in the night time, the screeching, we see the signs knocked over, we hear about people being injured, and we hear about the tragedies like Tom's son. And I think our view is it's got to stop. It's beyond time. And when you analyse the systems that are in place at the moment, we have Vision Zero. Well, where's the targets in Vision Zero? I can't see any. It's nice to have a nice warm feeling that we head towards zero. You actually have to do something. My reading of the Vision Zero documentation is it's relying on the car manufacturers to do something and make cars safer. When cars are getting safer, why is our road toll going up? It's because people are taking greater risks, in my view. Plus, the dangerous behaviour is escalating because the sanctions are not there. Moving on, we went and had a look at the motor accident insurance law. Now, I was stunned that the MAI Commissioner, as far as I can tell, is not required to provide a report to the Assembly. Now, anybody who's worked in the field of disability will tell you that somebody's injured. That's often what's called a long-tail disability. Now, a 20-year-old's injured now, this gets back to Mark's point. A 20-year-old person's injured now and suffers a life-altering injury. That affects their life for the rest of their lives. It affects the people around them. And if you look at family breakups, family tensions, when people have manifest injuries, the whole family situation can go bad very, very quickly. Disputation, resentment. So it's okay, we talk about that 10, 15, 18 fatalities and hopefully no more. My look at the data is there is potentially 50 times more people requiring medical attention than the fatally injured. And we need to have a better look at it. So one of our recommendations is the legislation be altered for the MAI. It be required, the Commission be required to report to the Assembly with an actuarial assessment of what is going on. What's the tail we're carrying? What's the injury burden we're carrying? Now, we've made some other recommendations. We've heard things that people don't feel they've been adequately supported through the process. Surviving families, victims, support through coronial processes, etc. Court charging, making family statements, don't they call them? The victim impact statement. Yeah, they're not, these are traumatised people, but they're not getting adequate support. We've made a couple of suggestions there. One, if cars are confiscated and auctioned off due to proven dangerous driving events, those funds should go back into a pool to assist the victims of dangerous driving. The other thing we're saying is, well, maybe the motor accident insurance body shouldn't be focused on reducing our third-party premiums, and we all like to save the dough, but it should also be providing insurance service, which is a wrappable one, and look after it. Now, I had the good fortune to go to New Zealand a few years ago now and look at their accident insurance commission. And if somebody's manifestly injured, their officers are there by the bedside in the hospital with the forms, filling the forms in. Now, I don't believe that happens here. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I don't understand why. Are we so driven by cost and what is one of the richest jurisdictions in the country, in the world even maybe? Are we that driven and miserable we can't support people who are down their luck? But that's in there. We do talk about confiscation of vehicles. We talk about preventing. I don't like the idea of punishing young guys if we can avoid it. There's something going on getting people, and there's some people who've got long-term bad behaviours that are ingrained. Why have they gone on for 10 or 20 years? I don't know. But we shouldn't be getting new people into the pool. What can we do to avoid it? What can we do to avoid the temptation? Now, I've talked to a number of people working in the authentication field. Now, if the banks can do it and annoy the hell out of us when we try to get into our own bank accounts or other secure features around our home by relying on a message to your mobile phone, and then password you forget, or who knows. Why can't we do it with motor vehicles? Now, I noticed Toyota's announced they're introducing such a system. I was told last night that Tesla's got such a system in their cars. So go to your ignition. So the owner of the vehicle controls who drives the vehicle. They give the access. So it's not that hard in this world of joined up databases to then have a look at the driver licence system. Now, I'm hypothesising, I don't know that much about it, I've talked to enough people who think they do. To me, it shouldn't be that hard to then go back to the driver licence registration system and say, is this person authorised to drive this type of vehicle or this vehicle, and do they have a valid driver's licence? Now, we're talking maybe a 10-year model, but I don't see anything in the Transport Minister's conversations about moving to mandating better security for motor vehicles, stop people getting in, to not only stop the crashes, but also drive down their insurance premiums, drive down the theft rate that Tom was talking about. So, look, I think that's enough for me. I'm going forever. So I'll hand over to questions, and hopefully we can have an intelligent conversation for a while. Liam?
Thanks everyone, and particularly thanks Tom, for joining us tonight. I really appreciate your wisdom shared with us. I was just going to make a comment. It seems to me that we sort of talked about two kind of streams of ways and problems that we might have with road trauma. One is around sort of the justice system, problems with the justice system. And I think the other one we sort of touched on is the road system, safety of roads, safety of vehicles, people making mistakes, those kind of things. So I guess on one side we've got justice system and criminal activity. On the other side we've got kind of a broader safety problem. And I was just wondering what are the views of panelists over what should be the focus, what's the driving problem here, and sort of what's the key area that governments and the community should be focusing on?
I think a bit both. So the criminality element of legal crime, and speaking to Dr. Neil Robin, the police and the CDC, Pete Crozier, policing is never a single solution. And I think it kind of is. I think Tory proves that. I actually shared with Peter a study done, showing my social background, which from the Herald in Scotland. It was on knife crime Glasgow, and if you're not aware, Glasgow had the highest knife crime death rate in the whole of the UK. And it was a huge systemic issue. I've lived in Glasgow for many years. Even I played a rugby team, we'd be wary in the town centre on a night out because you could be approached by a group of guys and you knew you'd probably be carrying a knife. So they did change the laws appropriately to try and address it. But it wasn't just tougher sentences or tougher penalties that drove the change of behaviour. They actually knew approximately 140 key families, people, it's a Glasgow is a city with 600,000 people, so not two distillers to Canberra. They actually brought a whole bunch of them in the sheriff court, and they had a bit like Torrance got this spider web of potential suspects/offenders. They literally talk the guys through, well, that's you, we know it's you, we know you've been out here, we know you fight with these guys. And they also did a programme that actually brought victims of knife crime, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters who'd lost siblings to stabbed to death, because it was a huge issue there. In Glasgow, certainly with some of the DIs I spoke to, have actually been to Glasgow to talk about how they treated that, and Glasgow probably most knife rates or stabbing rates in the whole of the UK. Now the Scottish police have been down and actually advised the guys in London because it became a huge issue there. So it's never just policing. Tory's brilliant. The Tory cannot be funded, I don't think, forever, and nor should it be, because we're not treating recidivism. We're not treating the base problems of the criminality. And in Glasgow, it's a big working-class city. A lot of those socio-economic problems of generational poverty, granddad never worked, mum never, dad never worked, alcoholism, drug abuse, all the systemic issues that come with those kind of socio-economic problems. So from a criminality, I think you have to have a holistic approach, and it does feed into correction services, rehabilitation services, health. The police don't want to be doing a follow-up job on someone who's been ignored. I will tell you that right now, and I don't think it is the job. And if with appropriate health programmes in place, that's drug addiction, which has got an associated criminality, should be dealt with as a health issue, but the places have to be there. Wait 6 months to get the rehab when you're released out of community or just too late. The second point around just traffic behaviours in general. I was up in Sydney 3 weeks ago, and when I first came to Australia, I lived in Sydney for 3 years. And I think the road behaviours are quite different there, because one, you can't go anywhere particularly quickly any time because the roads are busy. There's a general feeling of more courtesy. I was waved out a cross junction in Hanley, and I said that would never happen in Campbell, let's be honest. And I think it's just not that rush to go places. So I drive from Chifley to Mitchell every single day, and I've been very aware of the speed I'm doing versus my son's crash. I reckon I'm the slowest car I'm doing speed limit, and I'm the slowest car on that journey every single day. There's a societal issue here that we think that the right to go as fast as we want, and the speed limit's just an indicative we should do it doesn't really matter. So So unless we change some of those driving behaviours, like, certainly tailgating is still a big issue. Even when you're inside lane, you can be tailgated because the guys want to go off the Kilcorran junction, so you'll drive right up your arse and you get the lights flash and all that kind of thing. I do agree with some of the technological challenges that could be addressed. The UK is fairly progressive, Europe's been very progressive around some of the implementation of ISO type intelligent speed limiter systems. I think that would into legislation across the European Union in July this year. The UK will do it July next year. The UK does a speed limit, or you can only go to a certain limit through the speed limit. The UK's figure, I think we reckon it saves 25,000 people from its implementation to 2035. Because speed, regardless of how you argue about speed's not the killer, speed differential is always an impact to crash. So that's the only other jurisdictions or other countries look at that kind of legislation and they reckon it's going to save thousands and thousands of lives, and then you look at industrial ecology and road safety, the big impact actually not that people die, it's the percentage of people that die is quite small. It's the lifelong injuries, and it's billions of dollars to the economy, it's billions of dollars in insurance payouts, and a target of getting to zero should be looked at. I have a niece whose father of a child, a partner, boyfriend, has recently gone into a scheme with his tutor, and he's got an ISO fitted to his car. He uploads his data every 3 months, and he got 50% of his insurance. Right, so we could do something really innovative, let's say, a people here. Here's the biggest risk to drivers we have. Put an ISO in your car for the first 2 years when you drive. We'll waive your original. Right? It's right over $1,000. And surely that's the kind of scheme we could actually talk to insurers, GIO, NRA, and say, well, it's costing you a fortune paying out the injuries and the compensation for these. Maybe we could support and fund this kind of initiative. So I think it's both things. Criminality is a really complex, the justice system is a really complex issue. There's basic things that Bill alluded to that we do in terms of harder to break into cars, harder to start them, certainly things like speed limiters for drivers. The guy stopped at 165, I think, up the Jura Parkway. Now, instead of hitting him with a $2,500 or $3,000 fine, it will be thou shalt have an ISO put in your car for the next 12 months. Right? And that, to me, that's a safer option because he's still got to speed. Right? So that's my view.
Agreed. Back to the original one, Liam, I don't know the latest stats, but stats which I don't like when it comes to reviewing road safety, because they're usually based on the holes in the ground when things are going wrong. Around the 50% number is of fatalities and injuries on the roads usually involve an unregistered or unlicensed driver. 50%. And the number of unlicensed, unregistered drivers going around is a tiny percentage of the actual road population. So I think the answer is pretty obvious, and I think the police Operation Toric and whatever its descendants are, and using all the technology that they now have access to, is to be applauded, and I think that's a great way ahead. And the benefit, I think, for us would be, it would bring the statistics down to something we can then work with for road safety for the rest of us. So the horrible total of 18, I hope it's still just 18. You keep waiting. Is that the real number we should be working to if we're trying to measure our road safety? Well, I'm not sure that is a good measure of road safety. Amongst a bunch of other things, it's probably not a bad thing to have, but it's definitely not 18. It's a lot less than that if you count that. And I think that would be adding a note of realism like that to our figures and what we're presented, and exhorting everyone to drive safely, would engage more people in a more iterative and developing road safety program towards zero.
One further observation on that. I'm strongly of the view that we are desensitising our population to the consequences of dangerous driving. When you see any crash reported, and I will not use the word accident because they're not accidents. The only person who can determine it's an accident is the coroner or a court of competent jurisdiction. Now, accidents, the word accident is slipped into our usage, and people like using it to be like is filled with milk. No, it's not. People are getting banged up, but the population at large is not aware of the consequences. Now, has anybody in this room actually attended a crash just after it occurred when the victims are being treated? So you know exactly what I'm talking about. The majority of people don't know. They have no idea. The first half hour, first 20 minutes, they're alone, you're waiting for your treatment to arrive, people have got no pain relief, they're stuck in the car, they're confused. It's not understood that there is a consequence. But I just think we need to be talking more consequences. The other thing I do talk about is I don't think the consequences for dangerous driving are severe enough. In my view, you drive dangerously, you're putting up people at risk. Driving is a privilege, that should be withdrawn. And I'm aware of a number of cases that have been to our magistrates court where leniency has been applied because they had to catch the bus. Catch the bus to work. So they're right to continue driving. Well, where's the consequence? And we need to see those consequences applied. We need them talking to their mates. We need them saying, well, look what happened to me. So they can understand there is a consequence. At the moment, I don't see consequences out there. The confiscation, we talk about confiscation, lawyers will talk about confiscation tomorrow in the Assembly. We think vehicles need to be confiscated. The current laws are so narrow, you can walk around them. If you buy a car that you're going to use deliberately in the hooning around here, you register in your grandmother's name. You may not drive. It can't be confiscated. This is my daughter's. There's another defect in there, I think, about those temporary registration permits to get go and get inspected or repaired. If you drive around on that, it can't be confiscated. The hoons know it. Nobody else does. The police know it, so they can't take the car. And there's also the evidentiary requirement, and that came out in Neil Gagan's submission. Seems to be very harsh and work against the people trying to enforce our laws. So the burden of proof seems to be set too high. Anyway, I'll pass on that. Lawyers, do you want to say something about confiscation? Into the microphone?
Probably not on my phone. I've been reading up quite a bit on confiscation of cars, and in countries like New Zealand are streets ahead of us. One strike, your car's confiscated. If it's your mother's car, she loses it for 28 days. 2 strikes, the car's taken. It is sold. The money then, I don't agree with this, the money then goes to pay for the fines that may have been incurred. But any money that's left over goes back to you once your car is sold. No, I don't agree with that. The money should go back to the victims of crime, not back to the person who's done something stupid. As a parent, if it's your car that's being used, you need to have responsibility. That's all right. You need responsibility. You need to take responsibility of your own actions of allowing your child to take a car, to use a car. You have, and in New Zealand, if your car is taken by your child, if you ring the police and let them know, then you can get your car back. So we need to be making sure that we change the way we look at these issues, because what we're doing now is we're hurting our citizens, and that's not right. That's not right.
Has anybody else got anything to say?
I'll just put a comment. Well, I sort of think the speeding and cars, you know, is a sort of extension of our personalities or status or whatever, is seriously promoted in the media, and you see lots of ads with, you know, there's a couple where the young girls giggling and racing around a roundabout and doing really dumb stuff, and you think this is sort of people trying to sell cars to young people, and they're actually not promoting safe driving in any way. You see four drives racing up hills and down gravel roads and all that sort of thing. So basically, it's an issue in the ACT, but it's an issue that's out there, and can we blame young people necessarily that they take some of this stuff on board? So I think we sort of need a little bit of a tighter control on advertising and the messages that it sends. So that would be my point, yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Nobody else? You got something else to want to say, Tom?
No.
Look, you've got a huge job in front of you. I've read the submissions and gone, oh, and you reconcile some of those. So, looking forward to appearing before you tomorrow. Thank you for listening so intently. I see you taking some notes. Always good. So we might wrap it up now, but I just want to thank Tom for taking the time to come out and communicate with us and share his experiences. And, look, there's no way I know how to express my thoughts on what he's been through, and I'm sure most people are saying it's just outside your normal paradigm. So we do certainly wish you all the best, Tom, and hope you get some good outcomes, and we should give you a bit of clap. Thank you very much. Marissa, you normally do an MLA presentation. Are you up for it?
I'm okay. Well, yeah, all right. Okay, just because. Oh, right. Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah. So we've got the dangerous driving inquiry at the moment, and we've got good submissions for that. We've got hearings. We have them today, tomorrow. So the process from that will be that the committee will write a report with a heap of recommendations, and then the government will respond to those recommendations. So and that will probably, by the time there's a response, well, most definitely will be next year. So this has got a long way to play out, and yeah, it is, I think, an issue that everyone is very alarmed about and taking very seriously. It's death toll this year is just absolutely horrendous. So yeah, there's lots of inquiries going on in the Assembly at the moment. I've got a petition running at the moment to stop the gambling advertising. So yeah, there's a federal parliament inquiry into online gambling. So I see this as a really important step, and it's great that this inquiry is happening early on in the term of the new parliament. And so yeah, I'm running a petition, got lots of different organisations on board. I'll write a submission to that inquiry, and then yeah, we'll see what recommendations come out of that. But I really do hope we can ban the gambling advertising, because it's just absolutely atrocious, the level of advertising on our TV at the moment and social media. There's one thing that went through the Assembly last week that I think was really quite proud of. I sponsored a petition. It's called the No Rights Without Remedy petition. So we've been a human rights jurisdiction for 20 years, but there's actually no remedy for human rights. So if you experience, if your human rights are breached, aside from going to the Supreme Court, there's no avenue for you to sort of have your case heard. So I sponsored a petition and we got signatures, we ran an inquiry in the Jackson committee, and the recommendation was that we do implement a complaint mechanism in the ACT, and that the government responded last week and said that they will progress to implement a complaint process. And at the moment, the legislative change will be that the Human Rights Commission will hear these complaints, and they will move for ACAT to hear the complaints down the track once, they've got a fair bit to do to establish that and to set ACAT up to be that formal process. So I think that's a pretty big step in terms of, people who feel their human rights were breached in the ACT, they will have some remedy now, which is really good. Just trying to think, anything else? Is there any questions that people have? No? Yeah. There is a lot going on at the moment. We've got 2 more sitting weeks for the year, and we've got annual report hearings, and we've just finished the budget estimates hearings. I've pretty much been in hearings for the last couple of months solid. I love asking questions and advocating for the community, and very happy if you see an issue come up, or you see an inquiry, or anything, just email me and I'll ask the questions and we'll see what we can do.
Look, we're pretty good at spotting things and inquiries and lodging submissions, you may have noticed. What I know we'll be getting into a bit later, and there's quite a lot of light rail proceeding, there's no argument there. Both the government and the former government committed to it, the federal government. So it's got bipartisan support. We're not going to be on the line, but we're going to use, you can be affected. And I really want to have some contact to explain how we're going to be impacted and to get the optimum outcome for the people of Western Creek. Now, I'm talking about where we need to change. Are we going to continue getting bus service into the city east? We love our R7. But what about the parliamentary zone? We're always going to end up on the light rail there somewhere. What's the construction going to look like? Is it going to be world's best practice, or are we going to get to something suboptimal? Now, I'm thinking also there's a stage 2 disability reforms in transport that will be announced soon. The Graham Minister's a lot of good work on that. And I'm just not seeing the culture coming through into TCCS. So let's have the conversation. Let's have a bit of a break. But over the coming time, as the plans come out, these are things I think we need to look at.
So stage 2A, the Raising London Circuit is just starting. There's all that. It's like, I don't know, 2 weeks old now. But there's every intention that it is absolutely best practice in terms of what we're building, but also in terms of the disruption management. So there's all kinds of sort of live traffic assessment and reporting technology that's going to be coming on board to let people know and to basically guide people and make them aware of where the disruption is and alternative routes and that type of thing. On the long term, about which bus routes will continue once light rail's there, there's still a fair few years there, so we can definitely have that conversation. And Minister Steele's very appropriate person to talk about that. We'll keep having conversations about light rail. It's got many years to go.
Hopefully we can get over the wars and get on with building something that works efficiently and effectively for the community.
I'm very passionate about light rail. I think it's worked brilliantly. It's worked well. There are different
views in the community, but it's worked brilliantly in the north, and you know, I think it is really important in terms of our city, just taking that next step in its public transport network. And you know, you look at other cities that have rail and light rail networks and much more efficient to travel around. And I think it is, again, it's about getting people off the roads and, you know, into public transport. And I think it's, you know, a very relevant conversation in all of tonight's conversation as well. And it's, yeah, all of these upgrades will make our roads safer. It is installing the best technology and the best road safety, I guess, brains on this stuff. And yeah, so I think there's huge opportunity, and I think there's the light rail path down Adelaide Avenue. I think there's lots of scope for community discussions that will come over the next couple of years around the sort of infill there and what that will look like, and how we will sort of balance the, you know, the development that is needed and I think should happen versus keeping our city, you know, the way we like it, and to the principles that we hold true in terms of it being bush capital. And you know, I think active transport, prioritising that and making sure, yeah, the routes are effective and safe.
I'll throw two more items in the little grab bag. We still cannot get a direct service from out here to the hospital, not to Kingston. To me, that's a major gap, combined with not being able to get over to Belconnen to go to Bunnings by public transport. We try to go to Bunnings. The other one is the Deakin Health Precinct. We need to think about that in the context of the design, or otherwise we'll be just where we are now. A difficult place to get to those private hospitals and specialist centres that we could be foregoing improved access. These are the sorts of things we'll be wanting to talk about.
Excellent. Yeah, we can definitely continue that conversation. I just remembered one other thing. The Canberra Health Services is just warning the community at the moment. There's a scam saying that they're Canberra Health Services calling out people, and it's a robo type call and saying, asking for your phone number and bank account details, I think. So just, yeah, anyway, Canberra Health Services will not ask you your bank details. But yeah, there's, I think, yeah, and I guess with the Optus breaches, and I think today there was a Medicare privacy breach again, I guess it's just warning the community, change your passwords. And I mean, you know, you hand your data over to all these different organisations, and you can't really control it, but yeah, I guess keep alert about these things.
Question?
Yep.
Can I just ask, is light rail going down the centre of Adelaide Avenue? Are you aware that that is a floodplain? How close to the light rail are you planning to build buildings, or Hughes and Curtin the extremities of the construction?
So light rail will go to Woden, town centre,
Yes.
Possibly Mawson.
Yes.
And yeah, in terms of its actual construction, I think they're better placed questions for Minister Steele. I mean, I'm sure they're aware of Adelaide Avenue and its history and topology, and yeah, and so I'm very confident that the engineers will be able to work with what they've got there. But he will be, you know, best placed to talk about what studies are done and, you know, what will be put in place.
This is not much point in building light rail and units all the way down, they're going to be flooded.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Now, we'll move on to the general meeting stuff, which is minutes of the September meeting. It's somebody move them and second them unless there's... Okay? Okay, so Rosemary moved and Michelle seconded them. Then is there any business arising from those minutes? There were a number of things we did talk about. Has anybody got any questions on things we may have done or may have learned from them? Okay, look, I'm going to declare the meeting closed and we'll move into the AGM component. Now, Rosalie, you were going to do us a bit of a favour, weren't you? Thanks,
You don't want to be here for that.
That's right.
First of all, I'd like to thank the outgoing committee for all the work they've done in the last 12 months. I'm glad I'm not on the committee anymore because I know it's been busier than when I was on it. So thank you. I'd like to declare all positions vacant and no, you don't get out of the vacancy. These are the nominations for the next committee. Chairperson Bill Gemmell, Treasurer Michelle Weston, Secretary Michelle Bordeaux, Ordinary Member Mark Boast, Ordinary Member Liam Foley, Ordinary Member Diana Terry, and Ordinary Member Featherston Gardens Committee Louise Hughes. As there are no other nominations and all positions have been filled, I declare those people elected. I wish you all the best for the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. That wasn't that painful, was it?
Oh, stressful day.
We've got to get you back on track. So what I'm going to do now, the next bit of this meeting, is get Louise to come out and talk about Featherston Gardens.
Thank you. I'm just going to talk briefly about Featherston Gardens. You've got a copy of the convener's report in your pile of papers, but I just want to talk a little bit about what we've done in the last year. Bearing in mind that we did have COVID lockdowns where we couldn't garden. And for those of you who don't know terribly much about the gardens are 3.5 hectares along Hyson Street in Western Creek. The gardens were part of CIT and CIT moved from that campus back in 2009 and then the gardens were left. We moved in as volunteers and the volunteers were set up under the auspice of Western Creek Community Council way back in 2010. We have a committee that runs the volunteering group within Featherston Gardens and we had our AGM 2 weeks ago. And we have 2 new committee members, 2 of our older committee members, longer serving committee members retired. So we'll have a little bit of a different focus in the next couple of years, but I'll just give you a rundown of the sort of things we've done. So in the last 12 months, the volunteers committed 1,500 hours of volunteering. So that's roughly it's more than that, 5 full-time employees. The work that has been done has been mainly remedial. We did win a number of grants in the last couple of years, and last year, sort of middle of the year, we completed a secret garden grant, which was part of Adopt a Park from ACT government. With that money, and I think we had about $6,000, we removed old trellises, blackberry, ivy, privet and all sorts of weeds. We've reinstated the ponds that run through that part of the garden. We have introduced a frog pond, which is really very noisy, and it's doing very well. We put in a checkers board, hopscotch, and tic-tac-toe, lots of crosses. We put in new paths, and we had some horticulturalists and landscapers help us to put a path in. Sadly, that part of the garden looks stunning, but sadly, because we've now had so much rain, a lot of the work that we did has eroded. And that is because work that was done on Featherston Ridge way back, 7 or 8 years ago, rather than directing the water out of the gardens, directs it straight into the gardens. So the erosion has been extreme. And it also means that we've lost quite a few plants. We depend on the ACT government to repair those paths. They have done it once, but over last weekend that's all gone. We depend on the ACT government to remove the limbs and dead trees that are in the gardens. That we're running 6 years late on. We have a grant to replant all of Hyson Street, or at least about 120 metres of Hyson Street. We haven't been able to finish that work. In fact, we haven't been able to start it because we can't get the trees removed. We also have a volunteer grant at the moment, which is helping us fund new tools and equipment for the gardens, and that's been really great. We also buy consumables like bug spray, hand sanitizer, etc., with that money. The other grant that we won, must have been in June this year, was we've won a grant for the Queen's Jubilee, and it is to have a garden party, which will be this Sunday come hell or high water. Yes, all of our fingers and toes are crossed. We'd like all of Western Creek to attend. You may need to wear your raincoat and wear your gumboots, but carry your brolly. But we have a number of stalls, and it should be a lovely, lovely day. We have Rotary coming to do sausage sizzle. We have Val with Christmas cakes. We have Rosemary selling cancer jams, jams for fundraising for cancer. There are about 1,600 plants for sale. There are also a number of other volunteer community organisations coming, so people can find out about volunteering in this area. With the other part of that money, we will be planting calling it a Jubilee Walk, which will be about 90 metres of trees along a fence line. So they will all be trees that the Queen would have admired, which are crepe myrtles, which had won an award at the Royal Horticultural Society show about 4 years ago. So they're the trees that we'll be planting. And then the other projects that we have completed in the last year are things like we've encouraged CIT School of Horticulture students back into the gardens, and they've been doing a huge amount of pruning of their spelliards. They have been propagating plants that are there. They have been looking at plant maintenance. So that's been really great. We have spread, I would think, about 15 truckloads of wood chip in the last year. We have planted numerous trees, lots and shrubs. We have removed, and I did a rough calculation of this the other day, I think it is 2 truckloads of rubbish, green waste from the gardens every month. So the volunteers have just been quite extraordinary. And the other project that we have just started in the last financial year is looking at a tree audit tool, so we can start monitoring the trees and the shrubs in the gardens to look at our replacement program. And then what we're looking at for the next year is to continue to prune, because we've got a lot of shrubs, as you all have in your own gardens, that have grown and gone berserk. We're going to be continuing weed removal. We're going to start doing a community newsletter again. We are focusing on our arboretum, which is about 1 hectare of trees. We are doing at the moment, we've just started with the aid of 21 Murray Dunlop volunteers, doing a native garden upgrade. And of course, we're going to be having the Western Creek Community Council garden party next weekend and this weekend and the fete. The other thing to know too is as our expenditure, we only spent about $900 last year, so we did a lot of propagating. And in our coffers, just so you know, we have about $7,000. That was at the end of financial year. Currently, we have about $15,000, which is through grant funding, which will all go back into the garden in one shape or other. With the plantings that we're going to be doing, we will also be renegotiating with the ACT government to look a little bit more at security, because when we plant trees, unfortunately, people do steal them. So we're having to organise security just within the gardens to make sure that things don't go walkabout. That's really it for me. Do you have any questions?
We would like a toilet.
Yes, and we've been trying to get a public toilet for the last 9-10 years. It is still on the agenda, and it's one of those questions that is asked every time Bill talks on radio, anytime we talk to government, anytime we talk to developers, we're talking about a toilet. Yes?
When is it going to be refurbished to protect it?
It probably won't be, but it won't be taken. It's okay. It is a green space that they know they have to look after. It doesn't look like it today, but they know they have to look after it.
I don't trust it.
Look, it has been saved, and they are well aware that it's now gained the reputation of being a place to go to for the community. And both Featherston Ridge and the new development below have factored it in to their operations. And there's also just been some taping of ads within the gardens. So yeah, I think it's there to stay. It's okay now. Yes.
Has there been any updates on what's happening to the Patch A new land?
That is still, the last time I spoke to them about their land, they were keeping it. And I know that Village had made them an offer for that a long time ago, and the answer was no. So it's just sitting. They haven't made a decision on what they want to do with it, according to the person I spoke to.
You want to buy one?
Any other questions? Pleasure.
Thank you. I'll do a quick skim over the Chair's report. You've all got a copy of the report. You can take measure to measure. I will reiterate what Louise said about public toilets up there. Give it on me up there again. Why doesn't this have that essential bit of infrastructure that will allow families to go out and enjoy a picnic up in those gardens, enjoy them, and also for the volunteers when they're up there working, just beyond me.
There was a toilet, a composting toilet, but it was lost when they divided it off for the school, and the school ended up in the school grounds. But they didn't replace it with one of the gardens.
We just need to keep on working on that. Now, Mark asked the question about whether it might be lost. Now, look, I think we learned something at the Kulo Park exercise, that maybe we should have a close look at this when the new planning bill and the plans come out, to make sure it's got the appropriate protections around it. Now, as we learned with the Kulo Park exercise, and we'll certainly be working hard on the MLAs on that, because it was declared urban open space. hopefully we can get some rehabilitation happening over there. Maybe we should keep in mind, for the same reason, there's a couple of other plots of land that are in my mind to look at when the plans come out. And that's not that far away. Okay, so moving on to abroad. Okay, we do have another committee. Looks like the last one a bit. But we're a really good committee, I think. Everybody's done their little bit, and we've achieved a lot when you look back at over the last 12 months, considering the COVID, the weather, all that sort of stuff going on. And now the economy's being belted. We just need to be mindful of all these things. Our new constitution, we'd hope to have it ready for tonight. We didn't quite get there. We've got some lawyers engaged pro bono via volunteering ACT, and they've done some good work. We just need to do some final touches and present the amendments to the council at a future meeting. We'll start what we call a special general meeting and hopefully have a vote on it. Really, the key feature of the constitution is it brings it up to date. It aligns us with the law as it stands now and deals with a number of minor issues we've discussed over the recent years that certainly need a look at. Okay, so yes, we've had lots of participation in lots of things. The planning bill has been front and centre for 12 months. It's going to an inquiry in November. I don't think it's going to be passed this calendar year. I just don't see them at the time. There were 2 sitting weeks left, and they've got an inquiry that's going to take evidence and report. And I think what they table doesn't really give us the comfort we want out of our planning system. You'd call it planning light, I think. And we haven't even seen the detailed district planning yet, but what troubles me in there most is the really appalling governance. I think it's wide open to manipulation, and it takes a lot of accountability away from the Assembly, who, my view, land is our single biggest asset, natural resource, and it needs to be governed correctly. So we put input into the government's 2022-23 budget. We've had a number of consultations with various government people about the new policing agreement, and you can guess what the topic, one of the topics there was, permanent policing. The other one, what are you doing about dangerous driving? You don't think we've been pests. Bit of work over Greeley Street, and hopefully plan to be out soon. The live streaming of all the meetings seems to be working. I hope they're all at home watching. And we held a really good Meet the Candidates forum for the federal election. We built a room up here. The 3 community councils got together, the Tuggeranong people, the Longo Forum and ourselves, and we had lots of questions coming online. So, okay, our real priorities remain road safety, preservation of open spaces, air quality. And I think in modern society you need to at least have the confidence that you're breathing air that meets relevant health standards. And fix my street. My favourite topic. And we can keep on going and fix my street because it's just not working. Keep on getting comments, put on fix my street. They marked it as resolved, they didn't do the work. Okay. We're increasingly getting comments about bus network. There is an upgrade coming. The commentary is the buses aren't, as somebody put in the Women's Safety Survey, meshed they don't connect. Now, we thought they would have been fixed with the last network upgrade, and then they went into the COVID arrangements and they undid it all. So it used to be really good. The bus, your R7 bus arrived, and then your buses to the suburbs would pull up after. Now it seems the R7 comes after all the buses are gone. Half an hour wait, not too bad, they reckon. Sundays, hour 58 for some buses. That's the 2-hour buses. An hour 58 in the weather we've been having, not pleasant. I think I'm really happy with is how much more closely we're working with Featherston Gardens. We're all up there today, having a look around planning the garden party. But we're having positive engagements and things are happening. The MLAs, Risa came tonight, Emma came to a thing with us on Monday night, but Julia's gone and Liberal as well. Chris has been a minister. I'd like to thank people who have just off their backs helped us from time to time. Stacking chairs at the meetings, helping us cut stuff out afterwards, and just general little bits of support. The people who provided input into our submission for the planning is invaluable, because it gave us anecdotes, it gave us quotes we could feedback. And welcome to the incoming committee, and if you know anybody who'd like to join the committee, there's a couple of casual vacancies. And we do have a lot of fun. We don't really have any disputation, I can think of it. Well, we think we're doing some good stuff in the community. So, anyway, thank you. Is there any questions on any of that? Am I allowed to declare the meeting closed? No? What's the minutes?
And Treasurer's report.
This meeting.
And Treasurer's report. Sorry. I don't think I need this really. So this is just a report for the last financial year. The council comprises itself and its subsidiary, the Friends of Featherston Gardens, and our accounts were audited by GLR accountants, and they were considered to be a true and fair view of the financial position of the council. So there was no qualification or any issues. We received an annual grant of $12,821 from the ACT government, which is our annual grant to allow us to carry out our responsibilities to the community. The bank balance at the end of the financial year was $12,818.58. These funds available at the end of the financial year meant we could continue to function as a council until we received the annual grant on 20 October 2022. This year we've continued to spend some money to improve alternatives for those unable to attend physical meetings, with the purchase of more powerful computer and some updated streaming equipment, which has improved our ability to live stream our meetings. The council joined Volunteering Australia for a small fee and received considerable pro bono legal advice on our constitution, which has been redrafted to match the ACT government model set. And just to improve continuity of access to records and equipment as people and members of the council change, we've taken out a small storage unit in Fishwick. So that was a new cost that we've taken on. In terms of grants, in 2021-22, we received a grant of $18,000 for a community street art program. Basically, due to restrictions resulting from COVID, there wasn't sufficient time for the council to consult with the various businesses and community to implement this grant. So So we returned the funding to the ACT government in time for it to redeploy its funds for the street art program it was holding Canberra-wide. The Council of Featherston Garden Friends were successful in obtaining a grant from the Department of Industry, Science, Energy and Resources for $17,800, and that is commencing in 2022-2023 financial year. And as several people have mentioned already, the first part of that grant is going to be the garden party this weekend on 30 October. That's the end of the report. Any questions?
Now, okay. The AGM minutes from last year, you've all got a copy. Now, does anybody want to move that they're correct? Are there any issues with them? And Mark's moved that they're correct. Does somebody want to second that? The lawyer's a second.
That's all right.
So, okay. All right, now my conscience is what have I forgotten? Okay, well, we've going to declare the meeting closed. And thank you all for coming. And I'd be really good if anybody's got the strength to pick up some chairs. Thank you for being so good and listening to Tom so well.